Peace and love. This is for those who have a long attention span, kind of, sort of, kind of kidding, kind of not kidding. I'm going to read this article from the newspaper, China to face stiffer challenges after COVID-19 pandemic. And this is the paper, so it's a real newspaper. It's the Sunday Star in Malaysia. And just to give you a different perspective, Americans think one way and only think the way we think, like most people. So this is just from a different perspective. Okay, in 3 to 9 months, when the global COVID-19 pandemic subsides or ends, Beijing, which has put its domestic coronavirus contagion under control, may not be able to smile and celebrate with the rest of the world. The path ahead is filled with challenges for China, the magnitude of which could be frightening. This economic giant of the East, now leading the global fight against COVID-19, is likely to continue to face a barrage of accusations or even lies that could prompt opportunistic and hostile countries to demand compensations to the tune of billions or even trillions from Beijing based on the current narratives. In short, China, the first country to be hit by the coronavirus, will have to brace itself for another intense battle after defeating the invisible coronavirus with a huge cost and sacrifice. If the Republic is not prepared for these future challenges, its strong manufacturing sector may suffer. Its important position in the global supply chain and its economy will be derailed. This is the post-COVID-19 scenario painted by Chinese netizens, I don't know, on social media as they warn their leaders to stop giving free aid or sell medical supplies cheap to ungrateful and evil countries. The worries of the Chinese nationals are not unfounded. They stem from recent news flow and anti-China remarks made by the U.S. and its allies. In Washington, China faces criticism over the way it handled the pandemic, lack of transparency, and alleged delay in sharing crucial information with the world on the virus. U.S. President Donald Trump, who labeled the coronavirus the Chinese virus last month, has often said Beijing should have acted faster to warn the world of the risk. He has even expressed doubt over Chinese data on infections and deaths. All these verbal assaults are hurled at China even as the U.S. and its allies are receiving Chinese aid or made in China surgical masks, ventilators, COVID-19 test kits, and protective gear. As its production of masks is fast and efficient, accounting for about 50% of the world's output, countries short of supply now have to turn to China for this essential commodity. Although China has been sharing its experience and expertise in locking down Wuhan from January 23rd to April 7th to curb the spread of the virus, it has still to endure incessant finger pointing just because the first COVID-19 outbreak occurred there. While Trump has stopped calling it the Chinese virus, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and other senior officials have stepped up their campaign against China, insisting on labeling COVID-19 as Chinese virus and Wuhan virus. By using the label, they are insinuating that the virus had originated from Wuhan, and by extension, China should compensate the virus-hit countries whose economies have derailed and social life disrupted. One class action lawsuit against China has been filed in the federal court in the U.S. seeking damages suffered from the COVID-19 pandemic. The stigmatization of China by U.S. continues unabated despite the release of more and more studies, including those from the U.S., indicating that the virus could have originated from the U.S. China has become the scapegoat for the U.S. and other countries for their failings. They have not taken speedy action to control the spread of the disease, watching China suffer in January through to March. What angers the Chinese most is that in some countries, China's kindness and generosity in extending help is cast with suspicion. It is not reciprocated with gratitude. Recently, the European Union's foreign policy chief, Joseph Borrell, called on the bloc to be ready for a struggle for influence with Beijing. Some EU ministers even insinuated that Chinese aid is aimed at undermining European unity after Italy and Serbia thanked Beijing profusely for its help. And by the way, Germany wouldn't help Italy at all. That's their neighbor. Okay, that's not an article. That's just me saying it. In response to remarks by a French minister claiming Beijing is waging a global propaganda campaign, China's foreign minister spokesman, Hugh, whatever his name is, retorted, do they wish to see China standing by idly while witnessing other countries suffer from the severe pandemic and losing lives? Do they think that they can do better than China in handling the disease? Hugh took the opportunity to reiterate China's belief that only international solidarity, cooperation, and mutual respect can overcome the difficulties. Stating Beijing's objective is to save lives and help the world end the pandemic, she added, China will not forget the international community had given it valuable support and help at the most difficult time in the country's fight against COVID-19. Beijing is willing to reciprocate the kindness of others. China has said it has extended help to more than 127 countries in their fight against COVID-19, coronavirus. It has given free medical aid to the world's least developed nations such as Laos, Myanmar, Bangladesh, and some African countries. Together with its private sector led by Alibaba Foundation and Huawei, it has also donated free medical supplies to almost all Southeast Asian nations and Pakistan. In response to calls for help from the U.S. and traditional American allies like Spain, France, and Japan, China has acted without hesitation. However, after getting medical supplies from China, some countries showed their ugly side. Spain's action was shocking and crude. After receiving the first batch of supplies in late March, the Spanish government returned 9,000 quick result test kits to China because they were substandard. The sensibility of the test was only 30% against the 80% expected. China responded by conducting its own probe. It is always two sides to every story. May not want to hear the other side, but there are at least two. It was discovered that the test kits Spain brought were from an unlicensed Chinese firm, and the test kits the Spanish government ordered from the Chinese government had not arrived. Currently, Spain is among the worst hit countries in the pandemic that has engulfed the whole globe. In Asia, Beijing came to the rescue of Japan, one of the earliest countries to donate medical supplies to China in late January. When the Princess Diamond cruise ship docked in Japan, China donated test kits to the National Institute of Infectious Diseases in Japan. In the West, China sent France, Germany, Britain, and the U.S. much-needed medical supplies. Chinese presence is also felt in Iran, the Czech Republic, Ethiopia, Liberia, Serbia, and India. But not all news is depressing for the Chinese. Beijing has been showered with praise and gratitude by countries desperate for help. Many Italians sang Chinese national anthem and hosted Chinese national flag from their flats after Beijing sent more than 300 experienced doctors to Rome to share their expertise and experience. In early March, Serbian President, can't say his name, I don't know how to pronounce it, who failed to get help from EU countries. In early March, Serbian President who failed to get help from EU countries said during a televised address, European solidarity does not exist. I believe in my brother and friend Xi Jinping. Although China had admitted it was not perfect in its initial handling of the COVID-19, the World Health Organization still praises Beijing's response and for its appropriate strategies in battling the virus, which has claimed over 3,300 deaths in the country. The crisis in China is largely over, while the rest of the world is still busy fighting the COVID-19 war. In recent days, the daily domestic infections in China have fallen to zero or near zero, although it is still dealing with imported cases. On Wednesday, the 76-day lockdown on Wuhan was lifted with cheer and celebrations. While China has often emphasized international solidarity and cooperation to end the pandemic, its leaders have indicated the country will face more challenges post-COVID-19. The concerns of its people on social media could be felt in the editorial of Global Times on April the 6th. As a major country that was among the first to bring the novel coronavirus under control, China must prepare to face an extremely complicated situation. China believes the pandemic is unlikely to end quickly and knows this will impact the world order and trigger turmoil, according to the official media of China. It said nationalists and populists have made more room to fan the flames, and China is likely to become the target of certain Western leaders to display their people's anger and disappointment. China may face much more serious risk in international politics. During a key leadership meeting on Wednesday, Xi warned that new challenges have emerged for China's work resumption and economic social development. In a statement released after the meeting, Xi called for preparedness in mind and work to cope with external environmental challenges and demand other Chinese leaders to redouble efforts in economic and social development. Lest others forget this, China today is not the old China during the Qing dynasty. A warning. That's the end of the article. And this was dated Sunday, April the 12th. So it's a little dated. But it just goes to show, I mean, there's more than one way to look at this thing. People are paranoid, and, you know, Americans like to blame, well, I won't say Americans, some Americans, especially the political class. But I won't add my commentary. I just wanted to share that article, and you digest it as you will and think as you please. But I just wanted to share something from a different perspective. And this is not from China. This is from the author is Ho, H-O, Wah Foon, W-A-H hyphen F-O-O-N, W-A-H hyphen F-O-O-N, Wafoon at thestar.com.my. Wafoon, as I spelled it, Ho, Wafoon Ho at thestar.com. And the Star is a Malaysian paper. It's not a Chinese paper. Okay, see what you think about that. Give me some feedback if you don't mind, you know, and see what, okay, all right, okay. Peace and blessings and happy Ramadan to those who are fasting. Peace out.